Welcome, brothers and sisters and children of all ages, to the Avatar MeherBaba program entitled I Met God in Human Form, Avatar MeherBaba. We'll get in detail information this afternoon from Adele Wolkin, who is our guest live in the studio here with us. She met Baba, and also Steve Berry, who has been with Baba's disciples. Now, meeting God in human form, what significance does that have? When you think about all the various God-men that have walked the face of the earth, going back to the beginning, Zoroaster, Rama, Krishna, Buddha, Christ, Mohammed, and now MeherBaba. What significance does it have to us here in the Western world, and we speak of meeting the God-man? Well, Steve Berry here will give us some insight as to why he would want to meet the God-man, or the God in human form. Steve, what reason would you want to meet God?
Well, I think my initial urge to find out about this all began when I was a teenager, actually, and I began to have the growing awareness that there was something more to life than book learning and possessions. There was some kind of knowledge available. I began to strongly feel that one could learn about life itself. And if I had lived my whole life and became an old man and hadn't learned this important something about life itself, then my life would have been a waste. And that is what drove me on to begin to find more meaning about life.
And Adele, you met the God-man. Why did you want to meet him?
Well, I really feel that believing in karma as I do, I was certainly destined to meet him. I was in my 20s during the last war, and I just couldn't reconcile the God I loved, the old benevolent God, with the chaotic state of the world. So I prayed to meet him, and I did.
Well, we have two little items here and ideas to whet our appetites. And soon we'll be viewing MeherBaba on film. We have this wonderful film. It's from the MeherBaba Foundation in Australia called The Avatar. And we soon will be showing that movie. And Steve, in your travels in India, you traveled with Baba's disciples, isn't that correct?
That is correct. Extensively. They would go on tours, and Baba's secretary primarily would go on speaking tours all over India, where thousands of people were very, very keen about this. And I had the good fortune of traveling with him and imbibing many good things.
Wonderful. Now let's roll with that movie, The Avatar, and find out who MeherBaba is.
I am one with God. I am the ocean of love. I am the ancient one. I am the divine beloved who loves you more than you can ever love yourself. MeherBaba says that he is the Christ, the God-man, the Avatar, the Savior of this age. For many thousands of people throughout the world, people of different nationalities, from all walks of life, from many religious backgrounds, for these people, MeherBaba is the Avatar. They come to bow down to him as God in human form. The Avatar is both man and God. the perfect being who is known throughout history in every culture and age of the world. The Christ, the Buddha, the Prophet. The name changes, as does the time and place. But the avatar is always one and the same, because God is always one and the same. He simply changes his human role to suit the needs of the age in which he appears.
इसके महबूबे रब मेरे काम आ गया मेरी बेताबियों का सिला मिल गया इसके महबूबे रब मेरे काम आ गया मेरी बेताबियों का सिला मिल गया मेरे हाथ आ गया.
God is like an infinite ocean. You are like a drop in that ocean. You see only the drop. You forget that you are always part of the ocean, that you are, in fact, one with it. The souls of all living creatures, of men and women of all nationalities, castes, and creeds, are really one. All are drops of the divine ocean. The avatar was the first individual soul to realize consciously his oneness with the ocean. At one and the same time, he knows himself as drop and as ocean. He comes to remind us that we too are the whole ocean, and he shows us the way to realize this. The God-man sets the example. He leads a perfect life of love and service to show us that it can be done. He takes upon the human form willingly. He accepts its limitations and experiences physical pain and discomfort. In this advent, Meher Baba was in 2 severe car accidents. His injuries were serious and made movement extremely difficult and painful in his later years. Each time he comes, the avatar endures some form of intense physical pain, appropriate to the age. He suffers knowingly for a definite purpose. He becomes man and goes through pain and helplessness only in order to free us from our burden of pain and helplessness. When God becomes man, it is due to his love for his beings. I suffer as no one could suffer. I suffer because I love. The avatar is like a gauge against which man can measure what he is and what he may become. Meher Baba led a simple life, surrounded by his close relatives and a group of disciples. He emphasized that for most people, the way to God lies through an ordinary human existence. The easiest way to find God is to leave all and follow me through love. I don't mean that you should leave your house and family. I mean that you be in your house and with your family, but love me as I want you to love me. Love me above all. As a man, on the human level, Meher Baba was warm and natural. He responded to one and all. None who approached him missed out or felt neglected. His love and concern extended to all the creatures of his creation. Yet he repeatedly said, God is the only reality. Everything passes except God. Nothing else is lasting. Not only is the avatar God, but also the ant and the sparrow, just as one and all of you are nothing but God. live only to find and realize your true identity with your beloved God. For the last 44 years of his life, Meher Baba did not speak. He communicated mainly through a unique series of hand gestures. You have had enough of words. I have had enough of words. It is not through words that I give what I have to give. My love, which is always silent, can flow to you, to be yours to keep and to share with those who seek me. The God-man visits his creation out of his love and compassion. He comes to remind us of the truth, to awaken us from our dream. And each time he comes, he teaches the same basic lesson: love. Love for God, love for our fellow man. Love all, because all are one. Live a sincere life. Be natural and be honest with yourself. All I want is your love. Love me. Do not worship me. Meher Baba accepted kindly the garlands and songs of praise offered to him, but he accepted them only as an expression of love from the giver. He emphasized that such things are not necessary, that rituals and ceremonies performed without thought or sincerity are of little use. The only prayer God hears is the prayer of the heart. Silently, he communicated with the countless men and women who came to him. For many, this moment was the only physical contact they had with Meher Baba. They bow down at his feet. They receive a glance, a nod, a caress. Yet countless thousands will tell of the depth and lasting significance of that brief moment. The avatar is always present and available to the one who approaches him sincerely. His power is not dependent upon his physical form. But from time to time, he gives us the pleasure and benefit of his presence on earth. The time of the avatar is like the springtide of creation. The God-man always appears when suffering upon earth has reached its height, when man has lost touch with his true spiritual nature. At that point, the avatar returns. He brings a new release of power, a new awakening of consciousness, a new experience of life, not merely for a few, but for all. Life as a whole is stepped up to a higher level of awareness, is geared to a new rate of energy. Meher Baba emphasizes that the avatar is for everyone. There are no special requirements, no secret codes. Saint and sinner, high and low, rich and poor, healthy and sick, man and woman, young and old, beautiful and ugly, are all equal in my eyes. Why? Because I am in everyone. None should hesitate to come to me, meet me, and embrace me with love. The only place that can hold me is the heart. Keep me close with you. I am always there.
Steve, you have something to ask Adele. We were talking
Yes,
as
I
the
do.
movie was progressing.
I think as we all saw in the film just now, Meher Baba makes the statement that he is in fact God in human form. And Adele, we'd like to know what it was like to meet Meher Baba, someone who does make the claim that he is in fact the highest of the high. What was it like meeting him?
Well, first of all, I had been prepared to meet him. I was very fortunate when, as a student at Columbia University, I had attended the talks of his 3 women disciples that he sent to spread his message of love and truth in the 40s. And in the end of 43, when I first came to hear the talks, namely of Norina Machiavelli, I was very much impressed with the high wisdom and of the actual words, content, teachings, but above all of the environment, of the evidence of the kind of love that these disciples had been able to develop, with love being always grace, must have earned that kind of love and were able to share it so abundantly. And so when I met him, I expected the one to be what he is indeed, the compassionate Father. He was just so absolutely integration of the, as I always felt it, of the best of my own mother and the best of my own father at their best moments. But he was constantly, permanently, that kind of all fatherly, motherly love. So that I was just in the atmosphere of one who cared for me far more than I ever thought I could be cared for by anyone. And this is a feeling that everyone I ever spoke to had for Baba, that they never felt such selfless love, totally devoid of anything selfish or anything even resembling an interest that a man might have in a woman. Is just a pure love, which is, of course, that is indescribable. Pure love is indescribable, has to be experienced.
So he fulfilled your every expectation that you had when you walked in there.
Yes, I had to, forever after, try to prove that I was worthy of that kind of love. And that's the story of my life.
So you were inspired to do better.
Yeah, against terrible odds.
As we all face,
right,
indeed.
Right.
When you first met him, what was it like? What did he look like to your eyes physically? What was his style of his mannerism?
Well, that was May the 10th, 1952, and that was prior to his 2 accidents which he had foretold and which were sacrificial especially for America, and the second accident which occurred in India. Baba foretold that his blood would have to be shed on American soil, that it was in order for us to enter into what he has termed the new humanity. And I know one of you will explain a little about that. Baba looked very Christ-like. I had prayed really to meet the second coming of Christ many, many times in my earlier years. And he really looked so Christ-like. We do have a picture of him here. Is it showing?
Yes.
Of course, that was later. I met him in 1952. He was born in 1894. And it was prior, as I say, to any disfigurements which did occur after the 2 accidents.
Mm-hmm.
Very beautiful. And that's described far more eloquently than I could ever describe it by writers such as the man you interviewed, Adi Kearani, in that beautiful book that you have been able to edit.
Mm-hmm. And when you were with him, how did you feel in his presence? What was it like? Was it like being with some dignitary? Was it like being with some important person?
Mm-hmm.
Was it like being with a friend, a buddy? What was the feeling like?
I indicated already that it made me very comfortable, since I felt this was the ideal integration of mother and father. I would say that the effect that being in the presence of one that is selfless and pure of heart certainly does shake you up inside, because we all have at least 2 selves, the higher self and the lower self, just to be very brief about that. You do get a gauge. He provides you with a gauge so that you can evaluate where you fall short of being free of lust, greed, anger, hatred, temptations of all sorts. And naturally that tension and that duality persists throughout life. And that is something that you begin to value as we mature. We don't resist it. That's I think, perhaps the criteria for trying to develop spiritually is not to resist that nice tension that you have between your higher self and your lower self. What do you think?
I'm curious to hear you answer that, Fred.
Fred?
Well, in tension between the higher self and the lower self, I should say I have extreme tensions, and they continue on today, knowing about Baba since 1968. Not having the fortune of meeting him physically, met him in dreams a couple times, but I would say that just knowing that he's the God-man has given me such a, it's like taking a respite on a long journey, and knowing that you've got somebody that's going to be with you and being able to give you the support and confidence to keep you going. My first trip to India was in September of '71. Baba, of course, was just out of his physical body. Only about a year and a half prior to that, January 31st, '69, he dropped his physical body. And I went to visit, and it was not the most happiest times around there. I mean, the disciples, as I've got to know them in my subsequent trips, are much more cheerful and much more, you could say, full of happy times and stories. As in that time in '71, there was still tremendous amount of loss felt, because Baba was recognized not only as the God-man, but as a friend. Can you imagine being with this magnetic personality that would be silent? That's something I don't think we covered yet. But in this book here, it describes or shows an alphabet board. Baba used this in his early years. From the age of 30, Baba did not speak. And so he communicated with an alphabet board. And so it was another interesting aspect of his work. Why was he silent? That's almost another entire program, if you will. But and then in 1954 he started using gestures. But being there in 71 and going to his tomb for the first time, I was awkward. I was very awkward. I'm an altar boy, a Catholic upbringing. But one who would have this heartfelt thing of there is a God. I know he's all-powerful. He's the Lord of the universe, and I should pray to him. And so as an altar boy, I would do that, my own silent prayer. And then in the military, when I was in the Air Force, it was the same thing, going to church on Sunday, even though I just came back from the nightclubs of Waikiki Beach. but it kept on growing in me, though, to be where I would sense that there is somebody higher than me. So I got into Eastern philosophy and studied it. And eventually it brought me to various teachers and gurus, and eventually became to Baba. Mm-hmm. And so I would just say that...
At this point, Fred, I'm curious too. Now that you were brought to the point of Baba, how did it come to pass that you began to accept him as the God-man, most recently come again in human form?
Well, at first it wasn't easy, because I believed that Christ is the God-man. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's my Christian upbringing, Catholic upbringing. But what happened was I heard that he was the God-man through books. This book, God Speaks, that's right up here on the table, authored by Baba in silence. That book itself drew me, and I said, my God, if somebody says he's God, I want to check this out. So I took one trip to India to visit with his disciples. I was impressed. I took a second trip. And now, after 11 trips, I will just say this, I really feel that if Baba is not the God-man of the age, I apparently have missed the boat someplace, because I feel deep inside he is. It's a feeling of, some things have happened in my life through him. They're private things. It's tough to share with people, openly and say, these are things that have happened because of his. Some people may, say this or that about it, but it's a very special feeling. Mm-hmm. And just the humanness of his disciples. They're just like you and I, regular people in the world who are now in their late 70s, and they're leaving us year after year. Another one leaves. And so the first generation of disciples will soon be gone. But
by leave, you mean you refer to dying?
Dying, yes.
They're getting older and
right.
dying.
So it's just eventually, I think something takes over deeper inside of you that gives you conviction more than your mind can. I mean, the mind can play games with anybody. Mm-hmm. And so I just feel that by going to Baba's tomb, visiting with his disciples, has given me a feeling of that he's the God-man.
There's no question about it that his disciples are extremely powerful individuals, and I think the most powerful thing about them, from my perspective, is that they have no sense of self-importance. They are truly humble. They don't try to attach any importance to themselves or garner any reverement of any sort. They're very natural and very simple, and it can actually fool somebody into thinking, well, these are just average people. But then after listening to them and hearing the profundity of what they have to say, after being around them and feeling the special atmosphere that pervades around these people, one knows that they know something that most people in the world do not know. And that is indeed a rare thing and a special thing. And I think it's just becomes overwhelmingly evident to anyone who makes a visit there to Baba's ashram in India.
I just noticed that we have queued up another movie. This movie is produced with the help of Pete Townsend. Pete Townsend, of course, of the rock group The Who. And it's out of Eel Pie Recording Studios in London, England. It's called O Parvardigar. It's almost like the best of Meher Baba. Small film clips with Pete Townsend in the background. So why don't we look at that film?
The song he sings?
And the song he sings is a prayer, O Parvardigar, a prayer dictated by Meher Baba to humanity for its sake in 1954.
O providing God, the preserver and protector of all. Without beginning are you, Lord, without end. None jewel beyond compare, and none can measure you. Without color, expression, nor form, nor attributes to name. You are unlimited, and none can plumb your bed. Imperishable beyond conception by our minds. None can divide you, oh God, you are eternal. None can see you but with eyes divine. Everything and beyond, in the firmament above and in the deep, on all the seven plains and far beyond, in all that's hidden to our eyes, in all we see. Beyond the trinity of worlds and in them all, you cannot be perceived, or no one shall depend. Oh, Babardika, preserve, protect us all. Without beginning are you, Lord, without end. The Creator, the Lord of lords, the knower of our minds and thoughts, omnipotent, omnipresent, all your power. You are knowledge, infinite bliss, infinite power. You are the ocean of knowledge, knowing all. Infinitely knowing, we can but tell. The knower of the past, the present and future, crowning even this, your knowledge itself. Merciful benevolence eternal. You are the Trinity of knowledge, truth, and bliss. You are the source of truth, the one with infinite attributes. You are the ocean of love we sorely miss. O Pavadika, the preserver and protector of all. Without beginning are you, Lord, without end. You are named Isaac, the only one worthy of worship. We sing the universal prayer to you, amen. Avatar MeherBaba, PJ. Avatar MeherBaba, PJ. Avatar MeherBaba, PJ.
The Best of Baba. That's really a treasure of a film, and all of posterity will really, really be very, very happy that that was compiled through the works of Pete Townsend, Ginny Katz, and many other people. We thank them very much at Eel Pie Recording in London. Adele, the title of the movie, O Parvardigar.
Yes.
What is exactly O Parvardigar?
Yes, well, since I was heard of that prayer, I think it's barely a day that I haven't said it, and it is the protector and preserver of all in the some dialect of the Hindu language. Isn't it interesting, Fred, that as you say in that film, that it covers a wide period of visits to this country too. Altogether, Baba made 6 visits to the West. And that covers, to my knowledge, because I see myself in one of those, 56 and 58. And he was here, of course, in 52. At that time, there were no films made of Baba, to my knowledge. So that gives us scenes, Parvardigar, that Townsend just did. He has made a collage of films that were also done in India. And so it covers a very wide range, India, Australia, and America.
And that O Parvardigar means exactly?
The preserver and protector of all. Which is what he is, in my experience.
Mm-hmm. Adele, earlier you related what it was like when you met MeherBaba individually in a private interview. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering what it was like to be with Baba in a crowd. What was it like watching him relate to numerous and diverse types of personalities and people of different educational levels and different status? What was your experience? How were people?
Well, that's a very important observation on my part to make, because coming to Baba as I did from a rather agnostic background, I had been studying a lot of the philosophies of the West largely. I had just started to become interested in Eastern thought. I was in my 20s, and I felt very strongly inclined to any kind of group that included all the other groups. I thought, if God is the Father of all, then He can't be exclusive, right? Mm-hmm. And I was very much drawn to, for example, at first to the Sufi teachings. I never became a member of any of those, but they do, at their service, they have the scriptures of all the different religions. And I was very impressed with that. And that, of course, is the way we are drawn to the Avatar, who tells us that I have come to bring together all religions like beads on one string. And then he tells us more than that. He tells us that the traditional ceremonials, the rituals, all of that are just the husks on this kernel. And they very often are separative rather than unifying. So that we have to get to the heart, the true spiritual teaching of the great ones. And the Avatar is that same pristine soul, the Christ soul, who came as all the avatars: Ram, Krishna, Zoroaster, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad. Therefore, he today is coming with essentially the same message. But he does initiate a higher level of consciousness. He's given us more to understand about our destiny as children of the one God, whose destiny is to become God realized. Also, as Fred pointed out, that book, God Speaks, gives the very fullest explanation of evolution and involution and God realization. Mm-hmm. That is the best one on the cosmology. And there are all the others explain just how Baba does respond to his creation. Mm-hmm. So that when I was in the midst of this crowd of people, I was just absorbed in a very profound way that I am totally unconscious of, I'm sure, this feeling of oneness. And that, I would say, was one of the most evident things later on as I began to reflect on the changes in my observation of other people, that I did prejudices, separative feelings, did fall away much more rapidly.
So that was...
And just to conclude about the ego, which you made a remark about, in England, one of the journalists that interviewed Meher Baba said, "Master, what is your specialty?" And Baba said, "My specialty is the elimination of the ego."
That reminds me, I was reading something on Baba, and somebody said, "Baba, what is your specification for a yoga to do? Is it Bhakti Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Gnana Yoga, Raja Yoga?" Baba says, "No, the yoga I prescribe is you go." It's a new car on the market today. Oh, no.
Meaning ego goes, and higher consciousness remains.
Steve, what about yourself? You've had the good fortune of being with Baba's very close disciple, traveling secretary with Baba for, I think he followed Baba for over 50 years, Adi Arani.
Yes.
Adi passed away a few years ago, and I think you were with him on the day he passed away. But what brought you to follow Meher Baba?
Well, I had a different kind of contact with Meher Baba than Adele described. She had the great fortune of meeting Meher Baba in person, in the flesh. And I had the great fortune of meeting Baba in a different way. Actually, I didn't even hear about Baba until after he had already dropped his body, after he had died. And shortly after that, I came across a book written by Meher Baba, and I picked it up and began to read it, and found myself, in a word, dazzled by it. Never before had I read anything that had such depth of ideas, such profound ideas, that were also expressed in the most clearly and simple fashion. I had studied a lot of masters and scriptures and different teachings, and so I had a fair knowledge base to compare, and I was extremely impressed. And that led me to find out more about the man himself. And as I learned about him, I found that, in fact, his life reflected his teachings reflected his life. That is to say, there was not a discrepancy between the two, as oftentimes there is. He led a life of caring, of loving, of sharing, of helping others, doing service to others. Very noble, very pure, no condemnation, only helping. This was very impressive to me. I don't know anybody that has been able to accomplish a feat of that stature. So those were several things that really drew me into him. However, I did have a difficult time digesting one of his statements. He said, "I am God in human form." That to me is a very, very large claim,
to say the least.
and I could not accept it. I liked everything else about it, but that was just a bit much for me. And then I remembered something in the Bible, a passage where God himself had said, put me to the test, and I shall reveal myself to you. So I thought, all right, I'll put this MeherBaba to the test and see what happens, see if he's a show or a no-show. And I had heard that MeherBaba had a large center, his main center in the United States in South Carolina. There are many centers in various cities of the United States, but this was his main center in the U.S. And of this place, he had said, I will never leave this place. I interpreted that to mean that his consciousness would be tremendously focused there on that place. So I thought, okay, I'll make this outward journey there to sort of correlate to an inward journey and knock on the door and see what happens. See if he's for real or if he isn't. So I went there. I'm not a person who's given to psychic experiences. I'm as psychic as a rock. So I don't have those kinds of experiences. Yet I was at MeherBaba's center there, and I guess it was about the third or fourth day, I had an experience that difficult to put in words, but to try to sum it up, I would say that it pretty much, it was so majestic, so beautiful, so intoxicating, so marvelous that it literally dwarfed all the experiences in the rest of my life. All the suffering, all the trials, the tribulations, the effort, successes, failures, everything was as nothing, a drop in the bucket compared to this fantastic panorama of this beautiful vision that I was having, a vision of MeherBaba, of his consciousness, a formless experience of him. And that's when I realized that, by golly, I am experiencing a little bit of God, and this really pales in significance everything else in my life. And I could see that everyone was in fact destined for this kind of experience, this state of consciousness, this awareness, this all-fulfilling love, this tremendous beauty. And I knew instinctively that everyone had that as their own birthright, as their own heritage, this very same thing, and that we're all destined to achieve that. Baba has said that every creature is destined to become one with God, just as every river is flowing to the sea. And as I was experiencing this, it seemed, of course, very obvious to me, very normal. It wasn't like, wow. It was the most obvious thing. Well, of course, how else could it be? This is naturally the way that it is. And subsequently, after coming down from that experience, I realized that it was a tremendously unique experience, a pivotal point, a turning point in my life, transforming me. I think that one of the things that Baba has said that really struck me also is that Baba said, the only difference between me and you is that I know who I am and you don't know yet who you are. But have hope, because I have come to help you win the one victory of all victories, the victory of yourself. I think that Baba that's his goal is to annihilate, eliminate our ego, and help us realize our own true selves and become one with God. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to that, Adele?
I think we're good.
I thought that was very beautiful, and I can identify with that merging into a kind of state of oneness with everything around you. Baba does give you that. Of course, yours was unique and very beautiful. I have, since you asked the question about the feeling in a crowd, that I think was characteristic a couple of times. Just being in Baba's presence with all the others, you suddenly become a one throbbing heart with Baba. And I'm sure that is part of his work of elimination of the ego. You feel the relationship. And as I think Fred could bring out so well, since he's met such a cross-section of humanity in his life, that Baba is the proof that he deals with every type and every character. Isn't that the truth?
That's for sure. And we now are going to watch a beautiful it's photographs of Baba on video, and also some footage with a beautiful song. I consider this a song that can penetrate to your heart. It's a flame burning inside. So let's share that now together. Such a tender moment with Baba, and that lady Baba was caressing in her face was Margaret Krask, foremost ballet teacher, probably recognized as one of the foremost teachers of all time of ballet. More information about Meher Baba can be obtained at our center. It's in West Los Angeles. It's 10808 Santa Monica Boulevard in West LA. Our phone number is 474-9454. We have Saturday meetings at 8 o'clock. Admission is free. Also, Baba books are available in all libraries in the Southern California area and in some parts of the USA. And I think Steve has a beautiful quote. Or
Yes, I do. Actually, I would like Adele to read something. Meher Baba had many beautiful teachings. The breadth and the depth of his teachings are quite extensive. And yet he has said repeatedly that the essence of his message is love for God. And Adele now has something to read that Baba has written on love.
Yes. Baba has given us elsewhere the points which lead to the grace of love.
I think there's very little time left, Adele.
Yes.
I just got the sign.
So, those who receive love from others cannot be its recipients without giving a response which in itself is of the nature of love. True love is unconquerable and irresistible, and goes on gathering power and spreading itself until eventually it transforms everyone whom it touches. Humanity will attain to a new mode of being through the free and unhampered interplay of love from heart to heart.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Adele, for being a wonderful guest.
Well,
thank you, Steve,
Fred,
for being a co-host with me. And thank you, all my brothers and sisters and children of all ages. We hope to see you again soon with another program about Avatar MeherBaba. Chai Baba to you all.